Hello, good morning. How are you? We have been talking about functional movement and going through the acronym that I came up for myself to help us remember functional movement and all the different components, the 8 different components of functional movement. My acronym is Come Sweet, Let Us Poo Poo. And we have talked carrying, motoring, stabilizing, lunging, twisting. And today we're going to talk about the importance of the squat. And it's so interesting as I am getting older to watch my body and other people's bodies when it comes to squatting. And I read an interesting article, which I can't cite right now, but it was talking about how people in the West, when they pick up things, excuse me, they bend at the waist and pick it up. And often, that taxes the low back, right? And so since I've read that article, I watch all the time and I watch that play out, that bending at the waist to pick something up instead of bending the knees to pick something up. Now, when you think about it in terms of biomechanics, what is really interesting is that by bending over to pick something up, you're not using the strongest muscles of the body. And so, the strongest muscles would be to bend your legs and use the muscles of the legs to pick something up instead of bending over from the waist to pick something up, which can strain the low back. So it's kind of interesting to me. I think it's just an interesting thing that in the West, we tend to bend at the waist to pick things up. So let's talk about squatting and why it's an important skill to kind of keep doing, keep using, and to start thinking about. I think that's the big thing about all of these functional movements is to simply be aware and to notice, oh, look, I avoid doing that. Why do I avoid doing that? Is it something that I can do more often? How can I do it more often? And kind of get curious about the functional movements that you use, because once you start paying attention to them, you'll see that they're woven in to your life and you do them all the time, or you don't do them, and then you can start to kind of think about the why. So I'm just going to grab my notes because I don't want to forget. To me, squatting is just one of those things that just do the squatting and find a way that makes it feel safe and good and right for you. So we'll talk about if it doesn't feel good for you later, but let's just talk about the why. I think squatting is really interesting. We don't think about it, first of all, because we sit down and stand up all the time, right? We don't think about sitting down and standing up. It just is something that we do. And so we don't really think about squatting. But when it starts to get interesting is when you drop something small on the floor. So a good test and an interesting thing to do, and this weaves in lunges and squats, is drop a penny. Drop a penny and see when you drop a penny, can you single leg reach down and pick it up? Or can you squat down with both legs and pick up a penny off the floor instead of hinging at the hip? It's a really interesting exploration. And what you'll find is if you tend to be a bend over and pick it up from the waist person, or do you tend to bend your knees to pick stuff up? I think how to start to imagine it in your life as you get older and as you age is, you can start to think about it in terms of if you can't squat, about toileting, about getting out of a car, all of the things that require you to get up will be hindered if you don't start, thinking about squatting and thinking about how can I do this, do it well, and do it often. So let's talk about some of the benefits of the squat. Squats strengthen the whole system. They challenge many different muscle groups to work together in order to complete a squat. They help to prevent injury. They help with mobility. And they contribute to a really solid foundation. If you look at a human being, when you when you when you stand, when you walk, if you're able to, your foundation often are your legs, and squats help to strengthen the foundation of your body. So the thing about squatting is that once you start getting conscious of it, you can start to pay attention to really start to pay attention to it. So here's some ideas. First of all, if squatting doesn't feel good, if you've done the penny test and you're like, woo, no, that doesn't feel good, that doesn't feel safe, that doesn't feel right for me, then you can just simply start with like quarter squats and start to get stronger in that realm. Just doing little, quarter squats. They're really delicious and they're a great entry point. Some things to pay attention to. Notice if your knees are tracking over your toes. Sometimes, because of lack of hip mobility, our knees will start to collapse inward when we do squats. Just start to notice, make adjustments so that you can protect your knees. Other things to consider, and just to start paying attention to. When you sit, can you control your sit? Can you slowly lower yourself into a sit? And can you functionally stand up? Yeah? So planting the feet, hinging at the hip, and then hip thrust when you stand. You can start to weave into every time you sit and stand, you can start to make it a really productive squat. Once you start to get those quarter squats, you can start to go a little deeper and go a little deeper and go a little deeper. And maybe once a month, throw a penny down and notice, can I single leg this movement? Can I double? Can I squat down and get something? It's really an interesting exploration and one that I just enjoy doing. And I notice myself, I'll give you an example. I was cooking this week and I was reaching to get a big pot out from a bottom cabinet. And as I did it without even thinking, I hinged at the hip to reach out to get that pot. And I was like, oh, look at that. I totally am falling into my habit. And so I bent down and, got I got my legs underneath me and I used my legs to pick up this kind of big, heavy pot. That's just an example. Every time you sit on the toilet, you can slow down and start to notice. Let me know how it goes for you. And enjoy just starting to get super conscious of how much you squat. Do you squat? How can you start adding more and more squats in? Have a great day. See ya.